So educationally, I went to undergraduate here in the area, University of St. Francis, and at that time it was actually merged with Lewis, so temporarily. So I have a long history with Lewis. And then I also, I went to Northwestern University for my graduate degree. I professionally worked for IBM for, 70s, 80s, and 90s, not 70 years, 70s, 80s, and 90s, in marketing and technical support. Since then, since I left IBM, I started teaching here at Lewis. I'm in the undergraduate as well as the graduate program, the accelerated program here. And I also do business coaching and consulting on the side with a lot of different corporations. I've had a great opportunity to work with different companies over the years. So the class that I probably taught most frequently is Assessing Leadership, and that's part of our organizational leadership program that's here at Lewis University, which, as you know, Lewis, their graduate program is considered to be one of the top in Midwest U.S. News and World Report. So I'd like to think that, we really are influencing, beyond the school walls here. They go out and we hopefully will prepare them with good content. So in Assessing Leadership, this 8-week program, we explore everything from some of the key assessments that are used in businesses today in leadership development programs, such as the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, which, as you know, Myers-Briggs is used by 80 of the Fortune 100 companies, 70% of the Fortune 500 companies. We explore that fairly deeply. We'll explore other assessments in there that might be used for team building, and things like Strength Finders, which are, again, it's a popular assessment that's out there. Business communication in the digital age is it's a very fun and fabulous class to teach. My students have a great time exploring new technologies, which literally change with every class that I teach. And so they become experts on things that they were afraid to even say, like Twitter. And so I have them tweeting, usually by week 2. They're all on LinkedIn. They know how to use all the current GoToMeeting technologies, and we actually use them in the class, everything from Google Hangout to Skype. GoToMeeting, Adobe Connect. And so that class is really, it's a great opportunity for the students to see what's very current, and the textbooks and the materials that we use in that class in particular are just outstanding because it really keeps them in tune with what's going on in the real world. So I think engaging students, just as employers today want to engage their employees, is a very important idea. I think that a great deal of that responsibility falls on the part of the faculty to create an environment to do that. I like to think that my philosophy is that I want to be, I'll say, the guide on the side versus the sage on the stage. So I don't necessarily stand up, and as interesting as I might think I am, I should not be up there talking the entire time. So I don't. I do a lot of activities. We'll have a lot of open discussion in the classroom. And again, along with my philosophy, if I have a class that has 15 adult students in it, chances are there's 150 years of professional experience in that classroom. So they're going to learn a lot from each other. I hope I have something to share with them, and I hope that really what I want to do is guide and facilitate that learning experience. So we do a lot of discussion. I call it sometimes small talk, and actually I start that out at the beginning of a lot of my classes because I teach communication, and I think small talk is actually big talk, and we'll talk about different topics. I ask people to try to generate conversation that helps us bring to life this idea that we should be thinking about each other, understanding our audience, and being able to listen and talk respectfully about a variety of different topics. So I think having open discussions where people feel free to express their opinions, do it respectfully, have a balanced participation, is a great communication skill that applies to so many of the classes that I do teach, whether they're leadership or communication. We do a lot of activities. I put them in smaller groups, dyads, and teams where real life they have to go do some research and perhaps role play, report back, teach back. And I incorporate a lot of other different kinds of things like gallery walks, and we do games and contests, different things to get people engaged and have fun. I call it, and I didn't make this word up, edutainment, and it's educating with having fun at the same time. I think that if the material is not relevant, it's not going to work. So I think that there are kind of 3 R's that I like to I've discovered over the years make it work. It needs to be real, so real world experiences. It needs to be relevant. I think that's the most important thing. Thus, it should not be irrelevant. It needs to be relevant to the student. And they're busy, they're professionals, they're working, they have families. And so it's very important to make sure whatever we're talking about in the class is real world and relevant. They can bring it back and they can put it into place somehow. And then I also think respect. I think we have to be respectful of each other, of the differences of opinions that we have, and respectfully listen to each other. Respect the learning environment. So I guess I've turned that into, 3 R's that do work. Without those, I don't think the learning experience is as robust. I work a lot with Myers-Briggs, personality theory. Assessments we know do work in leadership development. So with Myers-Briggs, sometimes the challenge is, okay, this is great, now what do I do with this information? So we take a look at Myers-Briggs. I feel as though my students in the graduate program really get a deep understanding of that because we spend a lot of time exploring it, thinking, talking about it. But we'll actually talk about, now that you know this, how are you going to use this maybe to run more efficient meetings? Now that you know that you have maybe 51% of the people that you're working with are introverts, how is that going to make a difference when you attempt to run a more effective meeting? So we will have discussions like that, and we do role playing. So that might be an example of, I don't know if that answers your question about real life application. We do meetings at work. We want them to be effective. We know we're working with people who are introverts and extroverts, and we need to bring that diversity together. So the way that I would structure that role play would be, I certainly could do something outside of class, and sometimes I will have them do research, like on birth order, and come back to class, and then we'll practice, what birth order means, who's the middle child, who's the only or oldest child, who's the baby, myths and facts. Or in the case where I might do role playing with contributors to personality theory, I would actually have them research live, go to the library or pull out your smart devices, do it right here, and give them a certain amount of time to prepare, then partner them up with each other, and I will have two colleagues, let's say, talking to each other. Sigmund Freud talking to Carl Jung, what might they say and how would that role play out? And they actually will be discussing in front of the class some of the key contributions that personality theorist made. So that might be how I would do a role play like that. I've had a lot of positive, teaching experiences. I get a lot of energy, from doing this. I enjoy it. I like the learning that my students experience. That's very gratifying to me. I think that I probably, I think the idea that I've seen that the diversity that exists here at Lewis is a very positive thing. And when I talk about diversity, it's not necessarily in the traditional sense, but what I see more is diversity of thought. And so I see people coming in here, they've got different ideas, they've got different learnings, experience, and backgrounds. And when they share that with each other and they learn from each other, I'd say that that's kind of an overall headline of, just a very positive experience for both me as the facilitator professor and the student as well. So diversity. So if I had a key recommendation that I was going to offer to the returning adult student, so first of all, I think that our students here at Lewis University are earnest learners. My experience is that they come here and they really do want to learn. And it's got to be like that in order for it to be the best experience. I think that what I would advise returning students is they need to be present. And that means physically and intellectually present. They need to be prepared, and because these classes are accelerated, you really do have to read and understand what you've read so you can come into class prepared, and to be able to share that appropriately, with your peers. And I think you have to be positive. So positive meaning you should be open-minded, and you should be prepared to listen to other people's point of view. So I think being present, being prepared, and then being positive, those would be maybe the three things that I would tell somebody who's returning to school. So I do like purple, and in fact, part of you may be shocked, but the top part of my house, which is cedar, I convinced my husband to paint it purple. It was kind of easy to do. We are both Northwestern alum, so thus the Wildcat color, yeah.